This is the Italian Real Estate Podcast, here to help you with the ins and outs and basics of Italian real estate, presented by ItalianRealEstateLawyers.com. Hello there, and welcome to another edition of the Italian Real Estate Podcast, presented by ItalianRealEstateLawyers.com. Of course, we are back at it again with Italian attorney Marco Permunian. How are you doing today?
Good, how are you?
I am doing great, thank you. And in today's episode, we wanted to talk about relocating from the US to Italy. There are a number of people who are interested in making Italy their home, whether it is on a long-term basis or just for a little while. But in this episode, we really want to focus on how to be able to legally reside in Italy. And so in this episode, we want to talk about some various different options that could be available, including citizenship by descent and the different visa options available. But before talking about the retirement visas or the digital nomad visas or the student visa, let's maybe talk first about the family reunification visa and build our way up, because I think this is going to be something that could be a really interesting option for those who might fit into this category. So Marco, would you be able to share with us a little bit more about the family reunification visa?
If you are married to an Italian citizen, or you're planning to get married to an Italian citizen, or if you are married to a citizen of the European Union, you are eligible for a spousal residency permit, which you can only obtain if your spouse, again, who needs to be Italian or a citizen of the European Union, resides in Italy. So the Italian government allows foreign citizens who are not citizens of the European Union to join their Italian or European spouse who resides in Italy. The application in this case is made directly in Italy, so the foreign spouse can travel to Italy with the purpose of applying for their spousal permit. Or, of course, the two spouses can travel together, and in that case, it's necessary that the Italian or European spouse first registers as a resident in Italy. A family reunification visa or residency permit is also available for dependent adult children or parents. So if you have a parent or an adult child who requires care, they can also apply for a family reunification visa, and they can be allowed to live in Italy together with you, again, on the condition that you are an Italian or European citizen residing in Italy.
Thank you, Marco. And there's two questions that I have that come from this. One of them would be same-sex marriages. Is Italy a country that will recognize a same-sex union? And the other question is to do with a domestic partnership. I know there are some countries out there that might allow for individuals who are not legally married, but kind of in a de facto union to be able to get a visa together. Is Italy one of those countries that will allow for this?
Yes, as of 2016, Italy allows the recognition of foreign same-sex marriages. So if you are in a same-sex marriage, your marriage is now recognized in Italy. And that, of course, will allow your spouse to get a residency permit and will allow your spouse to be able to live in Italy. Now, regarding domestic partnerships, there are some very specific requirements that need to be met. But if you are in a domestic partnership and that is documented, so it's not just a de facto situation, but there are documentation in your country that are recognized by your country and that qualifies you as a couple as a domestic partnership, then that can also be recognized in Italy, and you can obtain a residency permit allowing your domestic partner to be able to reside in Italy together with you.
Well, that's great, Marco. And so just to continue on with this episode and talking about the student visa, I know this is an option that many people look into, especially if they're not sure if they want to stay long term in Italy, but would like to be in Italy for some amount of time, whether it's a year, a few months, or a few years. How does student visas work in Italy?
You can apply for a student visa if you are enrolled in an Italian school. It can be a language school or a university, a master program. However, your student visa will only be released for the duration of your studies in Italy. The application needs to be made through the Italian consulate in your country of residency, and the application process could take a few months. So it is important to get started a few months before your intended date of relocation. At the time in which the application is filed, you need to be enrolled in a school and you need to have documentary evidence of your enrollment. If it's a language school, make sure that it's recognized by the Italian government, meaning that it's not an unofficial language course. It needs to be something, of course, that is properly organized by a proper school in order for you to be able to obtain the necessary documentary evidence that you are enrolled and that you will need again at the time in which the application for the student visa is submitted. A visa is required, of course, if you want to stay in Italy for longer than 90 days, because if you are an American citizen and you're planning to attend some language courses for less than 90 days, potentially coming to Italy as a tourist might be a better option, and you would avoid, going through the trouble of obtaining a visa that is, in most cases, not required for short term stays that are up to 90 days.
That totally makes sense that it would be an easier option in that case. But a quick question also just on the student visa topic. If somebody is coming to Italy as a student, would they be allowed to work during their time as a student in Italy?
The student visa allows the visa holder to work for up to 20 hours a week. So you need to attend school for 20 hours and you can work for the remaining 20 hours of the week for a maximum of 1,040 hours a year. So yes, it is possible to carry out work activities while you are studying in Italy and while you hold the student visa. And just to further clarify, you do need to be in school for at least 20 hours a week to be able to qualify for the student visa. And for the remaining 20 hours, you can then carry out work activity. But it is not possible to obtain a student visa if the school program that you want to attend does not offer a minimum of 20 hours a week in terms of being in the school for 20 hours a week.
Very interesting, and thank you so much for sharing those details, and also that particular caveat about the amount of hours for a student visa. I think is very interesting. And so, just before we move on to the digital nomad visa, elective residency visa, and as well as dual citizenship, I'm curious about for these visas. We're kind of talking about people maybe who might be more interested in spending a little bit longer period of time in Italy. And in that case, having a place to live will, I'm sure, be a requirement. And there are going to be many people looking at Italian real estate that they're thinking about. Maybe they want to purchase a house or an apartment or have something that they can call their own. And so I'm curious about how owning property in Italy might fit into the whole visa process.
First of all, a lot of people believe that purchasing a property in Italy automatically allows you to reside in Italy. Unfortunately, that is not the case. In Italy, it is not possible to obtain automatically residency if you purchase a property in Italy. And also, a further clarification, you can purchase a property in Italy even if you don't reside in Italy. So you can purchase a property even if you have no intention of moving to Italy. Maybe you just want to use it as a vacation home and just visit Italy as a tourist for a few weeks a year. But on the other hand, if you want to obtain residency, in some cases, getting a property, not necessarily purchasing a property, you can rent one, but it's a requirement. So, in other words, if you want to obtain an elective residency visa or a digital nomad visa, you do need to enter into a rental agreement or you need to purchase a property. And one of the documents required is either the rental agreement or the deed that shows that you own a property in Italy.
Well, Marco, that's great information to know. And to move on to the digital nomad visa, Italy finally released their digital nomad visa not so long ago that had been in the news for quite some time. But what are the particular rules for somebody to be able to use this type of visa to be able to call Italy home?
Like you said, the digital nomad visa was recently introduced by the Italian government and it allows non EU citizens, so including US citizens, to apply for this visa through the Italian consulate in the country where they reside. The most important requirements are the following: you need to be a highly skilled individual who can prove that they have worked remotely for a period of time equal to at least 6 months, or you need to provide documentation that shows that you have been working as a freelancer for at least 6 months. You also need to have an income equal to at least 25,000 euros per year, and you need to purchase a private health insurance that covers the duration of your visa. So at least at the beginning, you need to have a 1 year private health insurance that covers the first year of residency in Italy. Once your visa application has been approved by the Italian consulate, you will have to obtain a residency permit once you have settled in Italy. And the residency permit is automatically granted and it's valid for 1 year. You can renew your residency permit from within Italy without the need to use the Italian consulate again after the first year for 1 more year, as long as you continue to maintain the requirements that I mentioned before. After 5 renewals, so 5 years, you can apply for residency permit in Italy, which will allow you to be able to reside in Italy basically without the need to renew anything anymore. And after 10 years, you qualify for Italian citizenship through residency.
Well, it's all very interesting. And to continue with the elective residency visa, Italy's so called retirement visa, can you tell us a little bit more information about this particular option?
The elective residency visa, also known as the retirement visa, is meant for people who have passive income. Not necessarily retired people, but just people who have, again, passive income, which needs to be equal to at least 3,000 euros per person. So if you are a family of four, including minor children, you need to be able to prove that you have 3,000 euros worth of passive income per person. And of course, a family member can cover the others. So, I don't know, the father, for example, can have enough passive income for the whole family. That is completely fine, as long as, again, it is proven that you have at least 3,000 euros per person. The elective residency visa strictly requires passive income, so you cannot use any active income. By passive income, I mean investments, pensions, social security, whatever is stable and wired basically into your bank account every month or every year, something that shows stability and that you don't have to rely basically on anything, or you're not going to be a burden for the Italian system while you reside in Italy. You can basically support yourself by yourself. You will need a private health insurance for the first year, and then you can use the Italian healthcare system, not entirely for free. There is an annual fee, which is quite affordable, especially compared to the cost of an health insurance in the US. The elective residency permit can be renewed every year as long as you maintain the financial requirements that were initially required. And after 5 years, you can apply for permanent residency, which means that you will have the ability to reside in Italy without having to renew your status every year.
Well, thank you, Marco. And just before we recap everything that we've talked about so far, and maybe just because we've talked so much about Italian dual citizenship in general, especially on the Italian Citizenship podcast, would you mind giving us a very quick rundown of what some of the options might be for those who could be eligible for Italian citizenship by descent or maybe even through marriage? For example, like we talked about the family reunification visa earlier in the episode.
Of course. So far, we have talked about visa options and residency permit options, which could lead to the acquisition of a permanent residency status. But of course, applying for Italian citizenship, if you can qualify, is definitely the easiest way to be able to reside permanently in Italy. Probably not the quickest way, because generally, regardless of which path you choose, if you qualify for multiple paths, applying for Italian citizenship tends to be a quite long process. So you might still want to look into visa and residency permit options while you apply for Italian citizenship by descent or Italian citizenship in general, even if there is a way to apply for Italian citizenship by descent in a very expedited way, which means applying for citizenship directly in Italy. But let me take a step back. If you qualify for Italian citizenship by descent, you can apply through an Italian consulate, and the process, like I said, can take a number of months. So it's not a very fast process, generally speaking, depending on the consulate, on the country where you are located. But if we are talking about the US, it's a process that requires some patience. However, like I just mentioned, if you intend to apply for citizenship by descent directly in Italy, the process is much, much faster. You will need to live in Italy during the process, and you will also be required to obtain a residency permit directly from within Italy, which will allow you to reside in Italy during the dual citizenship application process. There is also a specific category of people that, to apply for citizenship by descent, need to petition the courts. And I'm specifically referring to those people who have female ancestors whose child was born prior to 1948. And we have talked extensively about 1948 cases in the Italian citizenship podcast, but those people can only apply for citizenship through the court system, and they're not allowed by virtue of the process itself to reside in Italy during the process. And the process through the courts, generally speaking, takes between a year and 2 years. Now, on the other hand, if you are married to an Italian citizen, you can apply for citizenship through marriage. If you reside abroad, the process will take 2 to 3 years. If you reside in Italy and you have already obtained a spousal residency permit, which we mentioned before, that allows you to reside in Italy, the process will still take a long time, but generally speaking, it's a little bit quicker if you reside in Italy, at least according to what we have seen recently.
Very interesting. And Marco, you happen to bring up a particular topic which we haven't gotten into so far, and that is permanent residency. Would you mind quickly touching on that topic as well? Because I think that's actually going to be something that's quite an interesting detail within this whole discussion.
We have talked about many visa options, including the Digital Nomad Visa and the elective residency visa. And I've mentioned when I was talking about those visas that you need to renew your status every year by obtaining a renewal of your residency permit, by proving that you still meet all the requirements. But it's no longer necessary to do so once after 5 years you apply for a permanent residency, which you can do again only after 5 years of residency in Italy if you were a visa holder, or if you applied for a spousal permit, you will be given automatically the ability to stay in Italy for the first 5 years in connection just to the marriage. And then after 5 years, you can again apply for a permanent residency, which is no longer connected to the fact that you're married to your Italian spouse.
Well, Marco, this has been absolutely fantastic. And I know there are going to be a lot of people who are really interested in the information in this episode. And just to quickly recap what we've spoken about, the family reunification visa for those who would be coming to Italy with their spouse or a dependent adult child or a dependent parent. And we've also spoken about the student visa for those who want to come and study in Italy for a limited period of time, as well as the digital nomad visa for those who are working remotely, and then also the elective residency visa for those who are planning on retiring to Italy, as well as permanent residency, and then even purchasing property in Italy and how that can interact with the visa process. But of course, Marco, if anybody is needing help to purchase property or get a visa to relocate to Italy, how can they contact you and your team?
People can contact us through our website, italianrealestatelawyers.com, or give us a call. Our number is on the website.
Absolutely fantastic. And of course, if you're interested in more like this about making Italy your home, about purchasing property in Italy, about renting in Italy, about whatever it may be, wherever it may be in the country, be sure that you are subscribed to this YouTube channel, as well as the audio-only podcast. And also, if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, that means you're also automatically subscribed to the Italian Citizenship podcast, another project that Marco and I collaborate on, where we talk about some of the practical and legal aspects of making Italy your home, kind of like what we've been discussing today. And also, if you're interested in more about life abroad and living abroad from the perspective of dual citizen expat, be sure to come over to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Rafael Di Furia, or you can search for Not Your Average Globetrotter on YouTube or your favorite podcasting platform of choice. But of course, again, we we have been here with Italian attorney Marco Permunian from ItalianRealEstateLawyers.com. I'm Rafael Di Furia. Stay safe and healthy out there, and we will see you all next time. Later.
Thank you.